it's Erica. So over the last 2 weeks, basically the beginning of October, I managed to read some of my new favorite books of 2015 and of like life in general. So I thought about making full reviews and full discussion videos about the books. I felt like that would be a lot to put up in 1 month. So I decided to do 3 mini reviews. So the 3 books that I'm talking about today are Carry On by Rainbow Rowell, You by Caroline Kepnes, and finally Queen of Shadows by Sarah J. Maas. These will be spoiler free, but I feel like if you haven't read the Throne of Glass series, I wouldn't watch my Queen of Shadows review because it being the 4th book in a series, it's gonna kind of be impossible for me not to spoil you on some aspect of the book by me talking about what I liked in this. If you guys want to skip to a specific review, I will have timestamps right here indicating what time you can skip to start watching them. So let's just jump into the first mini review. So the first one I read this month was Carry On by Rainbow Rowell. This is her newest novel and it came out on the 6th, but my pre-order came in a day early, so I got to start reading it on the 5th, which was just like such an awesome surprise. So in Rainbow Rowell's previous book, Fangirl, she kind of created this parody almost of the Harry Potter series called the Simon Snow series. It was about a young boy who attends magic school in England. So in Fangirl, you get some kind of passages of the Simon Snow books and Kath's fan fiction of it. And the fandom of Simon Snow kind of ships Simon and his arch nemesis and roommate Baz together. Rainbow Rowell really liked the world that she created, so she decided to write a full-length novel of Simon and Baz. It's not Kath's fan fiction and it's not the Simon Snow series. It's just Rainbow's own take on the world that she created. But it's totally not necessary to read Fangirl before you read this book. It completely stands on its own. So Carry On follows Simon Snow in his final year at Watford School of Magics. He and his friends and his arch nemesis Baz have to team up together to take down the insidious humdrum, which is kind of like a magical creature thing that has tortured and wreaked havoc in Simon's life ever since he came to Watford. I had super high expectations going into it because Rainbow Rowell has never disappointed me with one of her books ever. I think the only hesitation I had going into it was that she would kind of poke fun at Harry Potter too much, kind of make too much of a parody, but she doesn't at all. This book is so different than anything else Rainbow Rowell has done while always feeling like a Rainbow Rowell book. Humor and romance that is always in her books was weaved through this new fantasy world she created flawlessly. This book also explores really interesting themes. Simon is kind of a tragic character in the sense that he is prophesized to be this amazing magician and he really doesn't even know how to control his magic. And Simon, I feel like during the course of his novel, starts to realize the person that he really is rather than the person that he was told to be or wanted to be. And Simon kind of has to learn how to accept that, and accept himself, and accept his strength and his weaknesses. The relationships were also such a beautiful highlight of this novel. Obviously, Simon and Baz kind of have the main one. They have a very complicated relationship, but Simon's relationship with his girlfriend in the book and his best friend and the parents with the children and the teachers, they all highlight kind of a different type of love and a different type of relationship. And getting all that in one book was like so much. I was like crying for a lot of this novel. So I would say that if you're not a huge fan of contemporaries, but you've heard so many great things about Rainbow Rowell, I would say give this one a chance. This book just solidified my admiration for Rainbow Rowell because she could even write a freaking fantasy novel and have it be one of the best fantasy novels I've ever read, and it's her first one. So the book that I read right after Carry On was You by Caroline Kepnes. I actually listened to this through an audiobook through Audible on my phone, and it is one of the most disturbing books I have ever read. Just for a quick synopsis, this book is about a guy named Joe who works in a bookstore in New York City. One night, a girl named Beck comes in and they kind of chat and flirt and laugh, and Joe really likes her, and he thinks that she really likes him, and naturally he begins to stalk her. And through the course of this novel, Joe kind of courts Beck in his own way, and a lot happens from there. The very unique thing about this book, and the reason it's called You, is because it's actually told through second person point of view. So Joe will say things like, I watched you read a book, so we are Beck. It's very off-putting, especially listening to it. I felt almost violated at some parts, but it's a very visceral experience listening to this book. The man that narrated this book is Santino Fontano, I believe is the way you say his name, but he played Hans in Frozen. He did the best narration I've ever heard. I know me and Hannah had super high praises for the Girl on the Train audiobook, but he brought it to a whole new level. I think a big part of this book is that it challenges you as a reader because it becomes very easy to actually sympathize with Joe and feel bad for him and wonder why Beck doesn't want to be with him and why things aren't working out right. And then you kind of realize that you're like, wow, Joe has done terrible things. Why am I sympathizing with him? He's crazy. But it happens over and over and over again. And Santino did an amazing job with his acting and with what he does, voicing the other characters to make you really care about Joe. Just a quick warning, this book is very graphic from the very beginning. Joe isn't exactly like Mr. Feminist 101. He says some pretty degrading things. There's pretty heavy sex scenes, violent scenes. It's rated R. It's not PG, it's not PG-13. It's an R-rated book. So if some of that stuff doesn't settle with you right, you don't want to read about it, pass this one on. But if you feel like you can handle it, I would highly suggest it. I definitely think this is a book that people love or hate. I don't think there's much in between. I think you either really get into Caroline Kepnes's writing and what Joe says, or you don't. But I say give it a chance, because I was thinking about this book for like days on end after I finished it. And lastly, the book that I just finished the other day was Queen of Shadows by Sarah J. Maas. I finally read it! So Queen of Shadows is the 4th installment in the Throne of Glass series, 5th, I guess, if you count the Assassin's Blade. It was by far my favorite book of the entire series so far. I'm not gonna lie, I was really nervous going into it because I've heard really mixed things, and that scared me because if there's any series I've heard purely positive things about since it came out, it was the Throne of Glass series. So all of a sudden people were like, oh, I didn't like the characterization. I didn't like when this happened. I was like, oh my god, I was so nervous. I thought it was freaking fantastic. I'm just so happy that I read The Assassin's Blade before I read Queen of Shadows because it gave me such a deeper appreciation for all the things that happened in this book and for all the references that get made to The Assassin's Blade. I felt like all the characters in this series went from like already 100 to like 1 million. Like their development in this book. Aelin has already developed so much since the first book, but just seeing her really resolve herself with the past and see her move forward, it was so beautiful. Dorian, we didn't see a lot of him in this book, but what we did see of him, I'm just like so proud of him. I'm so excited to see what happens with him in the future. And Kale and Nesrin and Lysandra ended up being like my new favorite character. And I'm so happy that she became such a big part of it because I didn't expect that at all. And I also really loved Manon's part. Her part in like Air Fire kind of just reminded me of How to Train Your Dragon. And I felt like her in Queen of Shadows was actually more about her development and what happens with her. And I mean, some of her passages brought me to tears at some points, but that's not saying a lot because 95% of this book brought me to tears. I can't even talk about what a mess I was the last probably 4th of this book. We also had amazing relationship development. So many people became closer. People who weren't exactly getting closer became really amazing team players. And it just feels like one huge family in this book now. And I just feel like the next 2 books are gonna be insane. But it was my favorite installment by far. And I'm just so excited to see what happens with everybody in the future. And there you guys go. Those were my 3 mini reviews. Let me know your thoughts on these books if you read them down below, or if you want to read them, or if you want to hear more of my thoughts, because I could definitely say more about all 3 of these books. These have become some of my new favorites. I know at the end of the year when I'm wrapping up my favorites of 2015, these will probably all be on there. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked these like mini review type things, please give this video a thumbs up or comment below so we'll know to do more in the future. Subscribe to see more, and we will see you guys next time. Bye!